Today we have a continuation of lesson 2.1, and there are two parts to what I'm going to ask you to practice today. And one is just graphing rational numbers on a number line. And I think that should be so easy that I don't really have to tell you or give you any information about that. I think when you see it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about and be able to do that fine. The other part of it is just talking about absolute value and solving some or evaluating some expressions with absolute value. So just to review what absolute value means, okay, the absolute value of something is the distance that number is from 0 on the number line. Okay, so when we say the absolute value of 6, I mean, first of all, the way that we show absolute value is by kind of two long lines. And if we said the absolute value of -6, that would be 6. If we said the absolute value of 6, it would also be 6, okay? Because we're just talking about how far is that number from 0 on the number line. So what the effect is if the number is negative and it's inside absolute value symbols, it becomes positive. And if it's positive, it stays positive. So that's easy enough, and I think you should remember that pretty well from last year. So we just need to look at a few expressions that that use absolute value in them. So for the first example, we're going to use 4 plus the absolute value of x minus 2. And then we're going to evaluate this if f is equal, or excuse me, if x is equal to 5. So we're going to replace x with 5 in the expression given. So we have 4 plus the absolute value of 5 minus 2. Now, it would be best to kind of think of the absolute value symbols as sort of like parentheses, like as grouping symbols almost, and go ahead and evaluate 5 minus 2 and get 3. And then we're going to say, okay, 4 plus the absolute value of 3. 4 plus the absolute value of 3, well, that's 4 plus 3, which is 7. So really, the only effect that the absolute value symbols had when we did this problem was it just told us to do the x minus 2 first before we did the rest, because it didn't really change the sign of anything. If we had picked a different value for x, so why don't we work the very same problem, but this time, let's say if x is equal to -3, and then let's try that. So I'll rewrite them and say 4 plus, 4 plus x minus 2, but this time if x is equal to -3. So 4 plus the absolute value of -3 minus 2. And if we recall that I've told you in the past that you should change these subtraction signs to adding the negative. So we have 4 plus the absolute value of -5. And the absolute value of -5 is 5. So the final answer is 9. So once again, put in the number, evaluate it, and then use the absolute value symbols to change the sign. Don't change the sign ahead of time. There are some students, I've had students in the past who think that, oh, well, because it's inside absolute value symbols, when I put it in, I should put it in here not as a -3, but as a +3. No, don't do that. Put it in as a -3, do all of your addition or subtraction, then at the end take the absolute value of it. Don't change the sign of -3 to a +3 before or as you substitute it. Substitute it as a -3. That's pretty important. That's really all for today, so we'll work on this tomorrow.